All right, Matt. This is a long time coming, I feel like.
Dude, it is, bro. It is.
So grateful to have you here. Thanks for joining.
Dude, I appreciate you having me. I appreciate your persistence. I know we wanted to do like a workout pod kind of style, but I'm always sometimes ripping and running. And like when you text me, I'm like, yo, let's just get it done. And then I was like, yo, I can't do it next week. I'm like, let's just do it this week.
Commit to it.
I'm super glad. I'm super glad we got to do it.
Thank you. Yeah, we're here. Excited for this conversation. So for anyone that doesn't know Matt Choi, obviously they see who you are today. So you're a former college football player, and that shows up now in your athletic abilities. You're running, you're now doing high rocks events, lifting weights, content creator, podcaster now. You got a lot of stuff going on. Super awesome to have you in this community. You're inspiration to a ton of people. And one thing I mentioned to you a few weeks ago is like when people see you in person, like that's the Matt that they get online. Like it's very rare these days, I would say. Like there's always a disconnect of like, here's an influencer, here's what you see on social media and YouTube and their podcasts, and you meet them in person. Like that's not the same person, but like Matt is Matt. Like you're the real deal. You impact a lot of people, so I appreciate you.
I'm humbled, bro. I really am. I think like the authenticity thing, and I'm sure we'll kind of tap into it. I think when I first started making content, I wanted to like really practice that muscle of like not feeling like I'm turning it on just for the camera. And now granted, everyone that's ever made a video, like there's certain things that you do for the camera. Like everyone has like, I love those videos of like influencers always like this when they have to set the camera tripod up and then they go do their thing. Like, I think that's just also part of the game of just like, you know, if you don't have anyone filming for you, then you have to stage some of those moments. But generally speaking, I feel like I just want to just show up into the world, whether it's on camera, whether it's in real life, in a podcast, working out, like I'm just going to be who I am. And like, I think it's harder to fake that, you know? And it's like, I think when people think about burnout, it's a lot of times because they're putting on a facade that they're not. And I think that's why I've been able to kind of really stay like even keeled through my journey of putting myself online.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. You're crushing it. And like, it's valuable too. Like you show your personality, you're funny, but like you have videos of like, here's tips for a runner for dealing with an injury, or like people get value from it. So it's awesome. I want to touch on the content in a little bit. First off, you play college football. Mm-hmm. I want to touch on your athletic journey because we see you now running marathons. I mentioned the high rocks. Was it a goal to play in the NFL?
It was always a dream.
Yeah.
I think when I went to go for, like, I think my first goal was to go play in college, and I wanted to earn a college scholarship. And that was like when I was in high school, like that was like my North Star. Mm-hmm. When I got to college, then it was like, all right, like how far can I actually take this? And I always wanted to play in the NFL and be a full Asian American football player and like it's rare, it's super rare. And like there was very few people that I could look up to that like went down that path. But I think honestly for me, when I started going through college and I dealt with a couple injuries and like I didn't really perform as at the high level enough to actually garner the NFL as an opportunity. So I think that kind of dissipated a little bit. And then I kind of went into that mode of like, well, who am I outside of football? And then that's when I went into corporate America, and then I kind of went to like a little bit of an identity crisis after that. But the dream was definitely to like inspire more Asian Americans, to like let them see that there are Asians that play football, that play American football, and like that was always the goal. But I feel like at times like opportunities and doors close so that new ones can open. Mm-hmm. And like that's truly how I feel about running, where it's like I wanted to do all those things in football, and like I feel like God's now put me into a path where it's like I'm gonna give you even a bigger microphone and do it in a different thing that you probably never would have imagined, and let's see what you do with it now.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of been my journey, which is it's humbling, honestly.
Yeah. And that's the complete opposite that what most athletes deal with. I work with athletes, like they get into this identity crisis because they play a sport their whole life that's wrapped around their day-to-day, season to season, and then it's taken away. Just like, I don't know what to do now. I don't know where I want to work, how I'm going to influence people, like who are my friends now? Like the NFL paycheck's not coming in. Like it changes people. And for you, like you were able to pivot and use your athletic ability. Like you hang up the cleats and you're not just like, I'm not an athlete anymore. Like I said, like you're competing, you're running marathons, high rocks, lifting weights. What does an athlete mean to you now that you're not having the pads on?
Yeah, I think about it. I think every human's an athlete. And I think the moment you actually realize that and contextualize what that actually means, like all of us are trying to perform in some capacity, right? Whether it comes to our career, as a parent, as an employee, as an employer, as an entrepreneur. Like, I think the mindset of being an athlete is more important than the actual skill set. I think more people need to take the framework and the mindset that it comes with being an athlete and utilize that in their day-to-day life. And that's kind of what I feel like an athlete means. It's like, yeah, like I think taking discipline and consistency and determination and commitment and ambition, like those are all sexy traits that, yes, are good for athletes, but they're good for a mom.
Yeah.
They're good for a dad. They're good for an entrepreneur.
Sure.
So I think it's more so, I think of an athlete as the mindset around it, less of the actual skill set. And I think that's what I've been able to take away over the past couple of years. And I think the thing I loved most about being an athlete was it's trial by fire. Like, you can tell someone that's been a part of a team sport just by the way they move, how they treat themselves, like how they respond to adversity. And I think I really do value those things because like my mom put me and my brother into sports early because we grew up with a single mom. Like my parents split when I was super young. So like I didn't have a male role model in my house when I grew up. So for me, sports was like what I gravitated towards. I'm like, yo, there's a coach, there's other players, like there's other parents like that are kind of like pushing you to get like the most out of what you can do. And I think I really leaned into that. And some of my coaches then became my mentors and role models and male like figures that I could be like, yo, that's the kind of dad I want to be. That's the kind of parent I want to be. That's the kind of coach I want to be. And I think sports has been one of the main ingredients to who I am right now. And I think that we're all athletes in that sense.
Yeah. I love that. That's like so encouraging for someone that's like afraid to take action on something. Like they think like, oh, I don't have an athletic background. Like I can't do, like it's exactly what Corey Camp is doing. Corey's like running events. They're just like, everybody's an athlete. Like, correct. I don't care what your background is. Like, let's just go have fun. Let's play something. Like, we're in Austin. Everybody plays pickleball now.
Correct.
Like, just pick up a paddle and just like throw the ball around, you know? Like, just have some fun.
And I also think that like there's something about being an athlete that also kind of brings you back to like being a kid.
Yeah.
And I think at times as adults, like there's so many stresses of life, right? Like financial, like relational, like business, like our careers, like there's so many things that people stress about. At times when you put yourself into being an athlete and do more playful kid-like things, it kind of like makes you realize what to appreciate. And like that, like at the end of the day, like the fact that you have a body that's capable of moving, that has a body that's capable of like doing sports or being part of a community, like those things are extremely valuable. And I'm a big fan of like the blue zones and areas where people live up to 100 years old. And I think a lot of the reasoning is not just around like diet and fitness. It's around like community. It's around like staying active. It's around just making sure that you're not like standing still and being stagnant in what you're doing. And I think in today's society where people are sitting down most of their time during the day, it's like it leads into a very like stagnant like body posture and position, but then also leads into like more laziness and people not getting to see the sun and like all those things that add into why someone feels like lazier or why someone has no motivation and
depression.
100%.
Yeah.
So I think that there's like the athlete mindset and just even the ability to like put yourself in those positions. It allows you to be more like a kid.
I love that. When was the moment you were like, I'm going to commit to my first race?
The first race I ever did was an ultra marathon, but the first time I ever committed to a race was my 26th birthday in 2021.
Okay.
I wanted to run a marathon. I wanted to run 26 miles on my 26th birthday was like the goal. And then from that point on, I said I'd every single year I'd run however many years I turn. And like that's like my ongoing like quest, whether I accomplish it or not. Like I want to run 100 miles on my 100th birthday, and like that might not be possible. It might be possible. I don't know, but like that's the goal of like to your point, right? Like how do you keep staying active at 80, at 85, at 90? Nonetheless, that was like the first unofficial race. I just did this around what's it called, like a rec center in Maryland at the time. And it had snowed 2 days before, so I was actually gonna do it around a track.
Oh, geez.
Which would have been ruthless.
Yeah. Over 100 laps, right?
Oh, yeah, probably like 104 laps, whatever the math is. But then it snowed, and like I was like, I'm not going to shovel the track. So I found like a local, it's called the Germantown, so it's a sportsplex. And it was like a 1.2 mile loop around like all the soccer fields. And I basically just did that like 25 times. And that was my first marathon.
Wow.
From there, I then got into an ultra marathon, a 50-mile race, which is the first ever race where I actually like signed up for it. I got a bib, I registered, I did all the things. And I just kind of like leaned in. Like I was really a big fan of David Goggins at the time. I downloaded that software and I was like, you know what? Like, let's go find out. And it was tough. It was challenging. Like now I'm getting ready for Leadville, but like that at that moment, 50 miles to me was like not impossible, but it wasn't going to be a walk in the park. And I didn't have enough running experience to even be like, oh, you shouldn't do that. Like most people would be like, yo, just keep starting with halves, do a marathon, like get better at the marathon, maybe do a 50K. But I was just like, yo, let's just do a 50 miler. And part of this was two of my friends who are really big ultra runners. They were just like, yo, Matt, you just did the Goggins challenge. You just did a marathon. Like, yo, sign up for this race. It's in April. This was in the pandemic. So like ultras were the only races really happening because it's a lot more spread out.
Yeah.
Like there's less people spectating it. You're in the mountain, you're outside. Like, so it's different than like New York City, Boston. Like it's hard to have those races with 40,000, 50,000 runners. But the Antelope Island Buffalo Run was my first ever official like race.
Okay.
Yeah. That was in 2021.
Awesome. And you've been running a lot since. Last year you did 12 in 12 months, right?
Correct.
Marathons?
Yeah.
Ran Korea. Do you get sore?
I do get sore. I think I really know my body well.
Okay.
I think that's been the biggest thing. I think people always ask me like, how do you like stay healthy and like how are you able to like keep doing this? And I think it's listening to your body. Like I understand from the football perspective of like when we did 2-a-days and stuff, like what that felt like, that type of soreness.
Yeah.
Then I understand like muscle soreness from like a hard lift, a heavy lift. And then like running marathons and like doing longer runs, like there's like, you still get sore at times, but I think as I listen to my body more, I'm just like, I'm able to like decipher when it's the good time to like lean in and push, when it's time to kind of like drop down volume or just take a rest day and like kind of just like figuring that out. I think it's an ongoing process. I do get sore. I think for me, the biggest thing though, when it comes to like the body is like, I never want to run with pain.
Yeah.
Soreness to me is like fatigue. But pain is like an injury. And ideally, I try not to push that threshold too much where you're kind of crossing the line of like leading into something that could be debilitating down the line. For me, it's all about sustainability. Like I want to do this for a long time. So like I'm not really for doing like crazy volume weeks. Like you won't really see me do 100-mile weeks even into my Leadville prep. Like I'm going to be keeping it in control with what I feel like is my base.
Right.
And then incorporating cross training in between.
Okay. And one thing I noticed about you is you do a very good job investing in yourself and your health. Like you're taking the time to like recover on your own, but also like you're working with Colin. You're working with other people to like make sure your body's right. You're dialed in. Like that's what people don't understand. Like you need to invest in that. And like LeBron and Tom Brady, like they come out being like, yeah, we spend $1 million on our body every single year to compete like at this age, at the level we want to.
Correct.
So like with the more challenges, like you got to make sure you're taking care of yourself.
I think, Matt, that's the biggest thing. It's like you need a board of advisors, people that are in your corner that are also invested into your health, invested into your goals and your performance. And I think guys like Colin, you know, massage therapist Jen, like other PTs that I know in other cities when I go to other places where I'm like, yo, I want to lean in and make sure that like I'm fully calibrated, right? Yeah. Like I think when people realize that your body, we get one of these, like we get one shot at this, like you want to make sure that it's optimized at its best, and that could also be nutrition. Like I've had a lot of convos with my buddy Dan Churchill about like how I can improve my nutrition and like what things that I can be doing better, because like I feel like I'm pretty dialed with food, but like there's definitely chinks in my armor there where I'm like, yo, I could probably do this. I could probably increase more carbohydrates. I could probably like, you know, maybe not fast as long, like whatever it is. And I think it's really important. I think a lot of people, obviously, like, I always think about this because now I'm in a position where I can invest in my health, and I think everyone has the means to do it. They might not have the sauna and plunge in their backyard. They might not be able to afford a PT every single week, but like figuring out like what you're struggling with and adding that first thing in is a good start. And a lot of this stuff for me, when I didn't have the money to pay for all these things, I just did at home. Like people always ask me like, Matt, like what should I do? Like I don't have money to pay a PT. I can't go pay a massage therapist. Like, well, you have a foam roller, you have a lacrosse ball. Like, are you myofascial releasing every single night when you watch TV? Like, are you getting into end range mobility when you watch TV? Like when people are doing leisure activity, it's always where I challenge them. I'm like, yo, that's your opportunity to like add in 5 to 10 minutes of something that you don't like to do that could have an exponential increase in your performance down the line. You might not feel it in 2 days. Like someone gets into a couch stretch or foam rolls, like they might not feel better in tomorrow or the next day. But like the compound interest of doing that every day for 5 to 10 minutes right before you go to sleep, what that does in 6 months to 12 months down the line is significant. And that's my challenge for someone that's like, yo, I can't pay for a PT, because I know that stuff also gets expensive. And like, I'm in a position where I can invest into that. But like, I also understand that not everyone is in that position. So there's always free options. And then there's YouTube. Like you can go through a yoga flow. You can go through like end range stretches. Like there's a lot of free information in the internet right now. And I think for most people, they lack the actual discipline to do it.
Yeah. I see a pattern here with the athlete mindset you brought up. Like that's dedication, you know?
For sure.
Like an athlete is someone who needs to continue to invest in that. It's not just the practice, it's not just the game. It's like, how are you feeling your body? How are you recovering?
Correct.
And you carry that with you now. So it's like having that mindset of not just your training session, but like, how can I get better? And the compound interest, like you can't argue with that. It just, one day it's going to click and you'll be like, oh, it all paid off.
100%.
Yeah. So you built your brand on running, creating content. Do you feel pressure now to like sign up for, so you're doing Leadville?
I love this question.
Do you feel pressure to say like, I need to go do Leadville 100 to make some content?
I don't feel pressure to do I don't feel pressure to make the content to do a crazy race.
Okay.
A lot of the times it's coming from a place like I actually am genuinely curious to see if I can do it. Now, granted, I'm always going to be doing content, whether it's High Rocks, whether it's Leadville, whether it's me going on my 6-mile run this morning. Like that's just like innate in what I'm doing because I'm just documenting everything.
Yeah.
I actually at times think that if I go do a 10K, 5K, like smaller races, that there's equally valuable content there. So it's less about the actual hard thing, the hard challenge, as in there's like the genuine curiosity to just see if I can go do it. And I think that's how I feel about anything that I do. It's like, I think we live in a day now where it's like everyone wants to one up what someone else is doing. Like everyone wants like, oh, like, you know, someone ran across America, like someone ran the length of UK, like all these things, which are great challenges. It's showing people that humans are capable of way more than what we think. And I think that's a beautiful message. Like that's all I care about. It's less about like, oh, who's doing what I think, but we also live in a space where because of social, everyone's like trying to one up and see like, oh, who could do the hardest shit? There's power in that. But for me, I'm so far from like the Goggins framework where it's like break your body off to just go see, like, I know I can do hard shit. Now, how do I best position myself to do this for a long time while also build my brand and build my business and build my distribution through media? Like I think about all those things, but I never make a decision on a race like, oh, I'm just going to go do this because it's going to get views. I think naturally there's certain things that will come up in my year that I'm pre-predicting that like I'm going to go be a part of New York City Marathon every year because I just love the experience.
Yeah.
Now, Matt, granted, do I know that there's a lot of eyes on New York and that there's going to be more like visibility? Of course. But like it first started when I didn't have as many people following me and I loved the experience I just got from New York. I chase more for the experience, less of like the validation from the external of like, oh, Matt was able to do X, Y, and Z. Like when I went to Korea, like I didn't care that no one was really spectating that.
No.
Like I was just out there with my team every single day and like, on my own. Like there was no one like, Matt, let's go. You got this. Like it was just like a internal battle.
Yeah.
And I think for me, that's what I'm looking for. It's like, I don't really need the external validation. I think I'm so intrinsically motivated that I don't need people to be like, yo, dude, that's so dope. Like, is it nice to hear? Of course. Like who wouldn't want to hear that?
Yeah.
But equally, because I feel like I'm so intrinsically motivated, like I don't hear the negative shit either or the positive shit. Like when people say you're dope, dude, you got X, Y, and Z. Equally when someone's like, yo, you're a bib meal or you're a fucking fraud, like I just don't hear it.
Yeah.
Because like for me, it's I'm just playing my own game, and like that's kind of how I think about challenges. It's how I think about content, and it's why I feel like I haven't burned out. Like I'm not doing this for the approval of anyone else.
I love that. It's spitting facts.
I appreciate it.
I love the point about Korea because you run across Korea and you're posting like, hey, I'm going to do this. You're posting like document the journey, but it's wild. You bring that up, like you're not doing it for external validation. Like the people there's no crowd, but like you go to dinner that night on, let's say day 3, the owner of the restaurant doesn't know you're doing it. Just like, oh, another guy showed up.
Correct.
He's going to pay me for this meal. Just like you don't need to walk around with a sign being like, hey, I'm doing hard shit. Just like, I'm doing it for me.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, I think it's almost so unrelatable to most people, Matt.
Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Like I don't feel the need to tell everyone what I'm doing. Like, I don't like if I ever meet someone. Like the first thing I say is definitely not like, oh, by the way, I ran the Korea. Like, yo, I did Leadville 100, or I did Grindstone 100, or whatever. Like, I've did this many marathons. Like, I feel like who I am as a human, the value I provide, like the morals that I have, is actually more important than the accomplishments I've
100%.
done. And that's why, like, when I meet people, it's like, it's never like, yo, I do X, Y, and Z. Most people introduce me in that fashion because that's how they know me, but that's not how I see myself. Like, I'm not just an ultra marathoner. I'm not just a guy that ran across Korea. Like, I feel like I actually bring so much more to the table. So for me, it's like, I'm not going to introduce myself in that fashion because I feel like I'd be selling myself short if I just say, I'm just a runner.
Right.
Like, I actually don't think that. Like, I think I'm way more than just a runner. Like, that's just a hobby that I have. And I think that some of the pushback that I get and a lot of the elite runners, like, I never want to find myself only getting validated from running fast, only getting validated because I'm an elite at one thing. Like, I want to be a jack of all trades, but also build speciality in certain things, right? And like, I will never be an elite runner, but I'll be pretty damn good at running by the end of my career, whenever that is. But like, I'm not going to ever compete with Olympic qualifiers. And I'm okay with that. I'm content with that because I also understand that that's not all who I am. Like, I want to storytell. I know distribution and content's important to me. Like, I also want to build businesses. Like, so I feel like there's other things outside of just running. And that's why I don't find the validation off like, oh, I did X, Y, and Z.
Mm-hmm. Good for you. What would you say to someone who follows you and they see the marathons, they see Leadville, they see High Rocks, they're like, man, I would love to do that, but they're afraid to even tie up their shoelaces, let alone sign up for the race? How would you give that person encouragement?
I would say that all of it is doable. It just might not be, you can't just do all of it at the same time though. Like, I think it's about checking off the boxes before you hit the main goal. And I think if people see me now, like I did a half marathon and then 2 weeks later did High Rocks, and then 8 weeks later we'll do a 100-mile race. Like, that's not going to be like normal for most people. No one really saw it 4 or 5 years ago when I did 30 Murphs in 30 days. When I did 2,000.
What?
4 years. That's how I started. That's how I started my YouTube journey.
Holy shit.
So I did 30 Murphs in 30 days in 2020. And I bring that up, Matt, because like, people see I'm not even at my end product right now. Like, I'm at like an early stage, I feel like still. Yeah. But like, people are, when they follow me now, they're just seeing this shit now. But they didn't see when I played college football for 4 years, then played football for 12 years, like how much training volume that I've accumulated up until the 29 years of my life is significant. If you're coming off the couch right now, like, and you haven't really been keeping fitness at a forefront of your life, it's going to be freaking hard to try to go do all these things.
Yeah.
I have like 25 years of fitness over my life that has been built into then being able to do these certain challenges, right? And then even if we're talking about endurance, like endurance has been a focus for 4 years. If I take myself to the day one, like I couldn't just do 100 mile my first day. Like it started with doing 2 miles a day with the Murph and slowly building from there. So I think my thing I would tell anyone is that you can do all of it. You just can't do it all at once. And you can't do it without discipline and some consistency and patience, because you're going to have some adversity that hits. But my challenge and my advice would be that anyone can do it. Start small, track your wins, the small wins, and be grateful for them and show yourself grace and love and understand that you're going to have adversity that comes along the way. But like, if you're actually able to push through some of the micro L's, the micro failures that you're going to have along this journey, that like you can conquer anything that you want in this world. Like I am truly, I feel like a testimony of that. Like 4 years ago, I never ran more than a mile. Like the thought that like now, like the 100 miler doesn't even scare me that much. Like I'm nervous about it, but it doesn't scare me.
Yeah.
And part of it doesn't scare me is because like if I fail, it's okay. And I think for most people, actually, the best advice would be okay with failure. Like if you go on a run one day and you feel like shit, okay. Like get some water, get some food in your system, show yourself some grace, and then next day try it again. And you just keep building that relationship with failure over time. Like you'll realize that like it's meaningless. Like if you have a bad day, like because you always have if you have a chance to wake up the next day, you're already winning.
Yeah. Yeah, it takes a lot of confidence to get in that mindset. Like, number one, the confidence that you build from, I'm going to start with 2 miles a day and then now 100. Because I think once you start small, you're like, I can achieve this. What's the next step? How can I push it a little bit further?
Correct.
And then a little bit more, then a little bit more. And like now, like you said, like basically limitless now. Like I know what I'm capable of. I've done the hard stuff. But also the confidence of like being okay with failure. That's tough. It breaks people.
I agree.
Of saying like, I failed at this task, whether it's in business or in relationships or in athletics, and you fall on your face, like how would you help someone get back up from that?
I think it's a mix of stuff. Like first thing I would say is like, a lot of people need to rewire their software and how they think about failure. Mm-hmm. And part of that is like, you have to understand that like, we've been failing our whole life as humans. Now it seems like it gets magnified as you're an adult. Like if you like go through a bad breakup, if you get fired from your job, if you go bankrupt in your business, if you cheat the system, like if you like fill in the blank, right? Yeah. As adults, it's more magnified. But as kids, we literally failed every single day. Like when you're a baby and you start trying to walk, you're crawling. You try to get up on 2 feet and then you fall down. But for whatever reason, at that moment in our lives, we're able to say, it's okay, I'm gonna try it again.
Yeah.
I mean, it's encouraged. Oh my God, you stood up for 5 seconds. Try it again, Matt.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you did it for 10 seconds. Oh my God, you took 3 steps. Like it's encouraged to fail and repeat, fail, repeat, find some success, fail again, repeat. Like it's encouraged. And I actually think that that's the recipe of winning in life. Like you should think about that as you get older. It's like, yo, how do I fail? And then learn from it, try it again, maybe see a small win, fail again, learn from it, try it again. And like that, rinse and repeating that process is actually the best way to get to any form of success. Whether that's in running, content, business, relationships, fill in the blank. Like you're never gonna get it 100% the first try.
Yeah.
And the thought that humans are audacious enough to think that they're gonna be perfect at anything that we do is crazy. Like, we're designed to fail. We're flawed humans. Like we're flawed beings, and it's actually good. Like that's the best way to learn. So first, it's an internal software. And for me, how that looked was listening to podcasts, reading books around people that were entrepreneurs and people that were able to like reprogram the way they thought. So much of it starts internally. Then you start putting things into action. For me, it came from the physical standpoint of like, I'm gonna just go try and see if I can do the Murph. I'm gonna go try and see if I can do a 2 miles, 3 miles, 100 pull-ups, whatever. Yeah. And then you realize, oh shoot, like I can do it. And then maybe you can't. And then over time, you keep doing that in other aspects, right? Then it was like, for me, it was like fitness at the same time. Then it was content. Me posting a video, seeing that no one watches it. Being okay with that. Next day, show up again, make another video. No one watches it again. Show up the next day, make another video. 3 people watched it.
Let's
get
go.
a little bit of momentum. And then you just keep rinsing and repeating. So I think it's like the Hormozy quote of like, you don't build confidence by shouting affirmations in the mirror, but by having an undeniable stack of proof that you are who you say you are. You want to get better at failure, then fail thousands of times, 5,000 times. I failed so many times making content, so many times in my life, so many times in running. Like that's why I'm able to even be a glimpse of success right now, because of all of those moments where I failed. So I think for any human, like my advice would be like, you need to actually do something and not be good at it to build the momentum and the muscle of getting better at failure. Yeah. But if you just sit back and watch a podcast or listen to Joe Rogan or listen to whoever you're listening to, and like, you're just like, oh my God, he's so right. But you just sit there all day and do nothing, then you'll never know what it feels like to fail. So like the best way to get better at it is to go do something and then fail.
Yeah. Just like take a chance on yourself.
Take a chance, take a risk.
Yeah. Like so many people, we live in so much comfort. You know, I don't want to like, it's like going the 9-to-5 route is bad, but because some people, they love it. They have success.
Correct.
But like, you stay at the same job for 40 years. You stay in the same relationship your whole life. You do all these different things that you might be miserable in, and you're just stagnant. Like, when's the last time you actually said, I'm going to take a chance on me? I'm going to like push the chips in and say like, it's my time. Like, not many people can say that, and it's unfortunate.
It is. I mean, I think that's where like community comes into a big play. Obviously, having the self-conviction and the belief in yourself that it is doable is amazing. It's hard to convince other people if you don't believe it yourself. If you do have an internal belief, but your people around you, your girlfriend or boyfriend, your parents, your siblings, your friends from high school or college, they're telling you that, yo, why are you doing this? Why are you staying up late to edit the pod? Why are you going on an early morning run? Like those humans they're operating off different programs.
Yeah.
And if you surround yourself enough with them, that program will become yours as well. And it's like that old saying of you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with. And if you do have that internal belief, then you need to put yourself into a different environment. City like Austin, city like New York, like put yourself somewhere where like there's other people that are getting after it that could maybe inspire you. And if you don't have the means to do that yet because you don't have the money or you don't have the runway or you don't know anyone, start listening to different people. Like actually plugging in to something else.
Yeah.
Not listening to the people that are around you, but plugging into someone online that you are like, yo, I like what this guy's about. Start there. Like that's what, dude, for me, it was Gary Vee. It was Jesse Itzler. It was Tom Bilyeu. It was Naval Ravikant. It was like all these Jay Shetty, like all these people that I just started to like reprogram. And I love the like matrix talk of like programming our mind because I think it's so real. Like people think that they're fixed. People feel like they can't change. That, oh my God, I was born this way. I was born lazy. I was born boring. No, like any human has certain traits for sure. But from those traits, we can all adapt and change. It's just a matter of intention. And I think for someone that's in Des Moines, Iowa right now, if you don't have like entrepreneurs or people that are around you that are pushing you to get out of your comfort, you need to start programming yourself with something different. And like that's a great starting point because it's also free.
Yeah, it is.
It takes
so
time.
Much free stuff.
So much free shit.
All over the place. Did you get pushback when you started your journey? You left corporate America and you're like, I want to be who I am now. Did you receive pushback from anyone?
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's natural. Like, you're going a different route. I think the initial pushback was all from the external, though. Like, the dopest thing is that the people closest to me allowed me to take a risk on myself. Like, I think the first person I think of is my mom. Like, I was living in Baltimore with a couple of roommates at the time, working corporate job. And I told my mom, like, yo, mom, like, I don't love this, what I'm doing. Like, I feel like at that time I was reading Gary's book. And I always say Gary, like, and I don't know if people would understand who I'm referring to, but Gary Vaynerchuk, his book, Crushing It, where he basically talked about social and media is where all the attention is. And you can build a brand and a business around interest. And for me, it was around football and fitness. So I was like, I want to go be a trainer. And I told my mom, like, I'm going to leave this job. And I then moved back home at 25 years old, which most people at that age don't want to do.
Yeah. And
this was like 6 months then it was like 6 months into the pandemic. So it was like great timing for me to kind of like be back home because I didn't want to be in the city at that point. My mom had a ton of belief. She saw the work ethic, but nothing was coming into fruition yet. But I think that the pushback I got was from like friends, like high school friends, college friends, people that were outside of my inner circle. And that's typically where it always starts, is the eyes, the ears, the mouths of the people that somewhat know you, but don't fully know you.
Yeah.
And then you like follow me on social. At the time I had like 2,000 followers. Like people are now seeing me post every day about like football drills and football and like what's Matt doing? Like what is this business? Like what is he doing now? Like people couldn't see the vision that I had for myself, and it's okay.
Yeah.
Like I said, like how can anyone expect other people to believe in them if you don't believe in yourself?
Facts.
No one needed to see or believe what I was trying to do in that moment. I didn't even fully know, but I just knew that I was going to bet all in on myself because there's no other entity or person that I would want to bet because I'm in control.
Yep.
So that was most of the pushback. But I think at that time I just needed to get smarter and fine tune who I wanted to pick to be in that circle. The beautiful thing, Matt, was that 6 months then goes by, we get into the pandemic, and then everyone is kind of in their own like inner circles. Only people can see stuff from online. So then I had some form of a competitive advantage because I was a little bit early to it.
Yeah.
I wasn't starting to make videos during the pandemic. Like I already had made 6 months of content that was kind of shitty into the pandemic. And then I'm like, yo, now I'm laid off as a trainer. I was working at Orange Theory at the time. I'm like, I'm going to go all in, five TikTok videos a day.
Wow. Like
literally just go ham and just test. So that's kind of how it all started. But then like it always happens, you get a little pushback, naysayers early on. The moment you get a sprinkle of success, people are always like, dude, I'm so happy for you. Like, dude, I always knew that you were going to make, like, I always knew you were going to make it, man. I'm so like, and it's not good or bad. It's just how humans operate.
Yeah. Yeah. And that it's so powerful, like the belief you had in yourself, and people don't see that journey. They might see you today on Instagram, follow you for the first time, be like, oh, it's crushing it. You know, this is just who he is. But they don't see the hours and the years that go into that growth. And maybe even years before that, you're just like, I just have a dream of like impacting people. I don't know what it's going to look like, but like, it's always just like festering in your mind. So now today people see you, large following, great content, awesome connections. You have your own shoe with Kane footwear. Like, people see, okay, Matt's up to big things. Going back, and you mentioned like 5 TikToks a day, a few years ago, like, what was it like starting to create and not knowing exactly where it could go?
I mean, definitely it's how I think about it is the unknown. I felt like the boat that I was trying to steer was heading in the right direction, but I didn't know what was going to be on that island. But for whatever reason, no different than football, I felt like I hadn't put 10,000 hours into what I was trying to do yet. So my mindset was more around, how do I stay present? How do I be a good human? How do I show kindness and empathy to people that are around me and strangers? And all in that process of just working on myself as a human. Let's just see where this thing goes. And that was always my mindset, even when I was making the 5 TikToks a day. Like, I knew the content wasn't the best. It was just, I just needed to get reps in. I needed to prove to myself that this is what I'm willing to do. This is what I'm willing to sacrifice. This is the path I want to go down. And to your point, the early stages is so hard to feed yourself that internal validation, because you're like, yo, I'm not getting paid shit for this. I'm not getting much traction. Like, how am I going to actually like start a business, be able to actually make this into a career? And I think my ability to also like build skill sets outside of just the content was my strong suit. And I see it come into play right now. Like, my mentor calls it fluency, like your ability to have conversation and have knowledge in multiple spheres of niches and industries, where you can have a conversation with a podcaster, and then a video person, and then a venture capital person, and then a private equity person, and then a creator, and then a fucking founder of a brand. And my ability to have conversations and have comfort in those moments, because I worked on those skill sets early on, I think is where I sit now. But no one saw that early on. Like, no one saw that I was investing into personal finance, and then understanding the credit card game, and then understanding real estate, and then understanding content and distribution and brand, and then fitness. Everyone just sees fitness, Matt. They don't actually see the other stuff I've been working on when it comes to marketing and business and all the other things. And I think that's been my biggest strength, is building up the other skill sets outside of just what people see online.
Right.
And I now see it because I'm able to add value now with brands and partnerships and the businesses I want to build, because I have a bigger mind than just being a runner or being a content creator. People put me in that box, but that's not the box that I play in. And I think that's really important for someone that's listening to this, is like, I see a lot of creators now here in Austin too, like they're starting to amass a following. They're starting to get known for what they're doing, but they're lacking the ability to go learn and be a student again in other stuff.
Right.
For me, it's about being a student of life. Like, I was the worst student. I cheated on everything. And I'm not proud to say that, but it's taught me now to be a student even further. I have to double down on it more.
Yeah.
And the things I want to learn now, I'm actually interested in. So I'm willing to read a book about it, listen to a podcast, and then listen to an expert, and then actually go put it into practice. And I think those early moments, I was even working on other things outside of just the fitness page and content. That then allowed me to have enough diversification of knowledge and experience. And I was never the best. Like, I'm not the best investor. I'm not the best trader or the X, Y, and Z, but like, I know enough. Like, I know enough about credit cards and how to leverage credit cards for a business. I know enough about how to invest into Apple or Nvidia or AMD or Tesla. Like, I have enough knowledge to be dangerous. I'm not going to be the best. And I love when Gary talks about that. You have to be dangerous enough. And I think about that a lot with my team. Like, I edited all my videos early on, and part of that was because I had to be able to understand how much time it actually takes before I hire someone, and then judge the quality of the work.
Yeah.
And that's what I think a lot about what your question around, like, those early days, like how to kind of build confidence outside of just the one thing when you're not getting a lot of proof that it's working, is build your skill sets, because that is something that no one could take away from you.
Also, like, the doors that it opens is incredible. Correct. Like, obviously you have a lot of different skills, and you're saying, like, I have enough that I can be dangerous in this area, this area, this area. There's some people that are just killers.
Correct.
So, like, they're experts. You mentioned Dan earlier. Dan's just amazing cook, entrepreneur. Like, he does all the things. Now you're tight with him, just like, teach me.
Correct.
Let me take your 10,000 hours. And then now someone that looks up to you, You work with them, you give them your 10,000 hours. It just always gives. And that's a beautiful thing. Like, you start to put yourself in a position where you can be around people that influence and that you look up to. You're only going to grow even more.
100%.
Yeah.
I think that's actually the game, is like, I'm a big Denzel Washington fan. He had this he had this speech at a college, and I always listen to it if I ever feel like I'm like, I need a little extra motivation. But at the very end, he talked about like how the most selfish thing that we can do as humans is give back, because of how it makes us feel.
Yeah.
And the very last thing he said in this speech was, each one, teach one. And I always thought about that as like, I never want to feel like I'm like big enough or too big, or like have not enough time to like give back to other people. And I've been so blessed to have people that have done that for me, where I feel like I try to do that as much as possible. Sometimes it comes in a format of a pod. Sometimes it's just like in the moments in a gym, or like when I'm walking on the street, or when I meet people like that have been watching my stuff for years, and they're like, yo, like because of you, I got into running or whatever. Like in those moments, it's like realizing that we're all human. Like, just because someone has a following, it doesn't make them better or worse than you. Like at the end of the day, it's just a number. Like if Instagram gets deleted, like I'm still gonna be who I am.
Yep.
And I think that's important to understand. I think a lot of times I've seen creators, and it's hard to judge this because everyone's going through different shit, especially when you're seeing people in the public eye. But I've seen a lot of people that like show up as one thing, and then when you meet them in person, it's just like completely opposite. And it's hard to like see that, but like it's just the reality. And also some of that I have empathy for, because I've been in those positions too, when you're fucking tired and exhausted, and you don't feel like fully committing your time to whatever conversation that might be, to a stranger that you've never met. But like in those moments, it's actually just like having the humility to be like, yo, this person's like supported me.
Yeah.
Even if it could be everything. Like that moment could change their trajectory of how, not even how they see you, but their life. And I think that there's power in those moments to still show up. But yeah, that would be my take on that.
I love it. What other good byproducts come from you building your following?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest byproduct has been time. Like, I'm just so blessed. Like, when I wake up in the morning, like, I don't know if it's Monday or Friday. I don't know if it's Saturday or it's Wednesday. Like, every day just feels like I'm living out my dream life right now.
Good.
People ask me like, Matt, like, when are you gonna know you made it? Or like, when's like gonna be the point where you like, it's like you've hit success. I'm like, I think about it. I'm like successful right now. It's not because I have money or I have followers or I have a house. It's like the ability to wake up every single day, to do what you want to do, to prioritize your health, to have passion and purpose around what you're actually doing is the game. Like, it doesn't matter if there's less zeros or more zeros in your account. It's like that feeling of not feeling burdened, or, oh my God, I have to wake up and go see this coworker or go see this boss. Like, that's the dream. Do I want to do more things? Do I want to build more businesses? Do I want to make more money and like have a family? Of course, there's so many more things I want to do. But in the current state, every single day I wake up, like, I have zero room to complain.
It's amazing.
And I think that to me is the biggest thing that building brand has allowed me to do. Obviously, there's other perks of like getting into events and races through a third door, getting sent to sauna, like those things are nice, but like long before I got that sauna, I was able to still do these things, you know? So I feel like time has been the biggest thing. And I think that's the thing that most humans cherish.
Yeah.
It's the one thing that all of us want more of. And when you're busy as hell and you're working a 9 to 5 and you want to go see your kids, you would trade anything to have time with your family.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that I've been super fortunate about.
That's amazing. I love that answer. What negative things come from social media?
I think the clear thing is like just the assumptions that people have on your who you are and your character. Obviously, like, it's so easy to judge someone without knowing.
Yeah.
Especially behind a screen. And I think at this point, like, I've gone through the ringer now of like getting hate and criticism, that it's like doesn't bother me as much, because like I actually think about it in that fashion. I'm like, this person feels this strongly about me without ever meeting me or actually having a chance to like connect with me. Even if someone meets me for like a quick conversation, a quick meet at like an expo, like when I'm like getting rushed or like not in the mode to like get into a full deep conversation, like it's not the full version of who I am. And then there's a bunch of people that don't even never even get that chance to even see me in person, and then they feel so strongly about who I am based on content. I think that is unfortunate that we live in a society now where people are that upset or they're that hurt with their thing or their life, or that they feel the need to like spew so much negative feedback or hate on others that they don't even know. I think that's an unfortunate thing around social, but it comes with the territory. Like, I'm not crying about it. I'm not like, I understand completely that it's part of the job. Like, you're not going to be liked by everyone. And something I learned, like not even learned, but something that when I was with Ryan Holiday, I had a really fortunate chance to be on his pod. And he said, Matt, isn't it funny how humans are audacious to think that we're going to be liked by everyone?
Yeah.
Like, think about that. Like, humans think that everyone's going to like them. The thought that that is actually going on through most people's head is like ludicrous. Like, I'm aware that a lot of people aren't going to like me, and I'm okay with that. I think when people get into this space and they start feeling the hate and criticism coming from a bunch of different areas, whether it's Reddit, whether it's Twitter, whether it's social, whether it's in their comments, whether it's people coming up to them, like, embrace that.
Yeah.
I think that would be my challenge for a lot of new creators is like, yo, it's not that you want to applaud and love the fact that you have haters. It's just that it's being okay that not everyone's going to like you. But if you can still like yourself enough and you like the person you see in the mirror and you're still showing up in being yourself and being in your own authentic voice and your own authentic person, that's actually what matters. But yeah, that's kind of a negative, I would say.
It's like what you said a few weeks ago, not for everyone.
It ain't for everyone,
You know?
man.
Like,
And that's okay.
yeah, I mean, you can't fight that. It's impossible. And if you try to fight it, you're not going to have the followers you have. You're not going to have the brand deals you have because you're just going to be an average person.
Yeah, and I think it also, like, it leads to being so caught up into the opinions of who you are.
Yeah.
I think why people get so hurt about it is that maybe they're not as sure of who they are actually, right?
Yep.
If a comment's gonna make you that upset, then I think it's almost re-questioning how you actually feel about who you are. And I think that needs to be such a strong understanding. Like, you need to have such a high level of self-awareness to be like, yo, whether this person thinks I'm a cheater or a fraud or a bib mule or whatever, fill in the blank, like, if I actually know that that's not who I am, then why am I getting so butthurt about it?
Yeah.
You know? So I think that's really important, especially for someone that's getting into the space. Like, most people get into content and they don't actually think that they're gonna like blow up. And as they start to grow a massive following, it's like, at first it's always the good stuff. Yeah. Everyone's showing you love and admiration. And then you start to kind of build that upward trajectory. And then maybe you slip up. Maybe you do something that's a little like quote unquote unethical or not politically correct. And people start to have opinions. And at that moment, it's like a little speed bump. How are you, like, it tests your character. And I think that's what I think about moments of failure and pushback from external people. Those are just moments of tests. It's a micro failure, but it's really just a test of like, who are you actually?
Yeah.
How are you going to respond to this?
How did you respond to hate in the past?
By showing love.
Okay.
I think, one, it starts with a self-reflection and accountability of maybe where you messed up or where you were wrong. And I think that's where it goes first for me. Like, I'm accountable. Like, I know that there's certain things that I do that people don't like, or there's certain things I do that are against what the system or against the rules and regulations of what's the right thing to do. And I'm aware of that. And from that moment, when you're accountable to it and you're owning like, hey, I messed up here, it's then giving yourself grace and realizing that, like, as humans, we're going to mess up and fail. But then to the haters that are really butthurt about it for more than just like a week, it's showing them love and being like, you know, I'm sorry that you feel that way. And I think that's how I've always approached any type of hate or criticism, especially when it's like a mistake. Like, if I mess up, then it's like, all right, I'm going to take accountability of this, but I'm not going to let this drag me down. Like, I'm not going to let this dictate who I actually am. Like, I think as humans, like I said earlier, like, we're designed to be flawed. You make a mistake, take some time to reflect on it, own it, be accountable, and then move on. And as you move on, figure out how you can better how to better navigate those situations and create a conversation that is actually a dialogue, not just like criticism.
Sure.
So that's typically how I've dealt with it. I think something that's really important too is, like, as humans, it's like showing yourself grace, knowing that you're imperfect. Like, don't beat yourself up. Like, I think I've seen so many people get like not even just burnt out, but like they don't know how to respond when they get into those moments of pushback.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's so easy to be like, oh, I'm a failure. Like, I can't believe I did this. Oh my God, this is gonna ruin my reputation. I'm never gonna be able to work with a brand again. Like, if you actually understand that like brands respect the fact that you're able to own anything that it is, like whether it's a mistake or fill in the blank, like there's actually more power in that. There's power in vulnerability. And I think that's something that I would challenge someone that's getting into it.
That's really good. I love that. Do you read comments now?
Of course.
Yeah.
I engage as much as possible. I try to comment back to anyone that's in there, even if it's hate. And most times when it's hate, I try to even give them more love. Like when it's people just supporting, I try to just like fire back quickly, just to kind of have a dialogue with the community. But when it's people that are spewing any form of hate, it's like I spend some time more to like really try to figure out, like try to hear them.
Yeah.
But I think it's important. I think it's something that the mid stages of, as I started to amass more following, I actually got lazier with it and I wasn't as engaged into the community. But now I try my best, like within a post, if like there's engagement in there, it's like the first 30 people, it's like, yo, firing back so that they know that like, yo, I appreciate you guys supporting and engaging with the content. Like, I think that's important.
Yeah. Haven't gone Goggins style and record the hate messages. And
yes. I mean, those are dope. I think it's like my buddy Andrew Glaze and like Matt Johnson does that too, right? Where it's like, let's see what the haters are saying this week. And, you know, I think at times it's funny. It's like comical.
You have a much better approach.
Yeah. I think equally though, it's like not even paying them mind. I think putting it in the comments is cool. I think sometimes responding to those comments in like a video fashion where you're directly like answering the hate question or comment that they have is always interesting too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's like football, man. There's multiple ways to win. There's multiple ways to navigate, and you got to kind of figure out your own voice for it.
Good for you. Last 3 questions for you. I ask every guest. So first off, how do you define success?
I think I loosely said it, but I think success is being able to do what you want, when you want, with who you want. And it's not a monetary thing. It's not a financial thing. It's not a business thing. It's just like the most success to me is like freedom.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that any human could make their own like depiction or definition of what that actually is. But like when you're truly free and you have no handcuffs in life, I think that's what success is.
Mm-hmm. It's like a feeling. It's not touching the car or the
it's just it's something that you can't. It's something that like money can create freedom, but like it is a feeling. It's something that like I don't know. Like I feel it every day in the morning.
I love that.
There's no burden. You know, there's no monkey on my back. Like it's just like you come into life, you come into rooms different with a different energy because like the burden isn't there. Like you're choosing everything that you want to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. You live that every day.
I appreciate
that. Of course. What is something you agree with that most people would disagree with you on?
This is a really good question. Wow. That's a good stumper for me right now. There's a couple things I actually thought of that would be a funny one. Like a lot of people now are shitting on cold plunges. I'm still a fan of cold plunges. That's something I just thought kind of funny that I thought of that's in my routine. I think humans can change. And I don't think most people think that. I think that we have the power to adapt and redefine who we are, and it can happen even more later in life. And I think like even a mission for me is to continue to show that as I get older, because I think what people think is that like you can't teach an old dog new tricks. And at times I think being the example of that is actually the better thing than fighting it. Like I don't need to fight my mom on trying to change how she thinks about certain things. It's like, how do I adapt to maybe better like relate with how she feels on certain topics and or things, right? I think the same thing about like humans in general, like whether it's in business too, it's like meeting people halfway. If you have the power to adapt and get there in a different approach, I think is important. And I think for me, that's something I want to continue to challenge as I get older.
That's amazing. Good answer. Last question for you. For someone listening to this that they want success in their life, they feel like they're on the path, they just don't know how to get there. What is one piece of advice you'd give that person?
I think I'd say two things. The first would be to invest into yourself. But the second thing, which I think is actually the tactic around doing that, is be a lifelong student. I think for me, that's been one of my greatest gifts and something that has definitely helped me along this journey, but also separating me from other people that are in my space. It's being a lifelong learner and never feeling like because you've had some level of success or quote unquote like small wins on the board that you get comfortable. And I think that's something that whoever you are, whether it's in fitness, business, relationships, like if you're always willing to learn and adapt and realize that you don't know it all, like that's the greatest gift.
Yeah. Always going to improve. Like there's literally no limit to what you can do if you're always just like, how can I get better?
Correct. There's always room for improvement.
Yeah. It's almost like the better you get, the more you know you can get so much better.
Correct.
There's so much more to learn.
I think actually that's what separates a lot of like billionaires to even people that are just millionaires. It's like their ability to continue to adapt and learn new things and get ahead of the trends and see the world in a different light. I think that's what separates like good from great.
Yeah.
And I think for most people that even listen to this, like you do that and apply that for the next year to 10 years, just see what that does in your life.
Game over. Love it. Well, this is value packed. So first off, thank you for coming on.
Of course.
But thank you for the way you impact, the way you show up. Literally, Austin would not be the same without you. So keep doing what you're doing. We all love you, and I appreciate you coming on.
I'm humbled, my friend. It was a pleasure.